So today we are going to finish the analysis of the text from The Life and Adventures of Robinson Crusoe that we had started analyzing last time. Okay. So last time we have stopped at the general ideas. We have spoken of the, we have identified the passage and analyzed the general ideas. We have explained all the general ideas of the text. And you saw that it was, in a way, it was a sort of a summary of the main ideas of the text. Okay, so when we are speaking of the general ideas, what you should be doing is informing the reader about the main ideas that came in the text. Okay, it's a sort of a summary. I don't really like the word summary. I prefer to say it's an overview of the text rather than a summary of the text. All right. So today we're going to move to the other parts of the analysis. So I'm going to share with you the text. I should also open. Do you see the text?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, it seems like I have changed the text only in my computer. I didn't share it. All right, now I guess you can see it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Perfect.
Now we can see it.
Okay. So I'll be sharing my screen because I will be switching from one document to the other. Please switch off your microphones. All right. So this is here. You can see here the essay that we had started writing together last time. So this is where we stopped, and here we have the excerpt that we had in hand, and this is the full method of literary analysis. So we are going to follow the method of literary analysis, and we are going to write your answers in the other document. So last time we have spoken of the general ideas. We said the general ideas respond to the question, what is it about? Now we're going to speak about the audience. The audience usually are the people that are targeted by the author. Who are the people that are targeted by the author in this novel? Okay, so in general, when we're speaking of Robinson Crusoe or The Life and Adventures of Robinson Crusoe, the audience or the targeted audience is in general the middle class or the 18th century middle class. Why, in your opinion, are we targeting the 18th century English middle class? Did you get my question?
Yeah. Yes, yes, miss. Because the author was from the middle class, and he wanted to try to make it simply for the middle class can access reading.
Yes, thank you. Simply because the 18th century middle class or English middle class was asking for literature that represents them. Okay, so the targeted audience of the novel is the 18th century English middle class because they called for a literature that represents them. That represents them. And literature that depicts their lives, their adventures, their interests, and so on. Okay, so the next step in the literary analysis is going to be the theme. All right, now we know who are the people that the text is addressed to. Now we should, yes? Yes?
Please, I have a question.
Yes?
Concerning the audience, we should mention the audience referring to the excerpt or to the whole novel?
Very good question. This is Marika speaking, right? Very good question, because the audience does not change between the novel and the excerpt. Okay, actually, when we're speaking of the themes, for example, the theme is going to change from one excerpt to the other, from one chapter to the other. When we're speaking of the plot, same thing happens. The plot is going to be different from one chapter to the other, and so on. But the audience is the same. The audience and the protagonist and the literary genre are the same, okay? Because they apply to the entire novel. Yes?
But Miss, for someone who have no idea about who has no idea about the novel, but
Yes.
just about the excerpt, he can't know that the audience is targeted to the novel is targeted to the middle class, the 18th century middle class.
Which is the job of the teacher. That is the thing that I have just done now. Okay? That is, I have just given you the information that this novel was addressed to the 18th century middle class in particular. Okay? So that was a piece of information that was provided to you by the teacher, and you should know that in the exam you are going to have one of the novels that we have talked about. Okay, so you are not going to have a novel that you haven't spoken about before. The novel is going to be either this one, The Life and Adventures of Robinson Crusoe, or Frankenstein or Clarissa. Okay, why? These are the three novels you are going to analyze with your teachers. Okay, so and in each one of these novels, we are going to speak about the audience, just like I did now. I told you who the audience is. All right, so once you have that piece of information, you are going to use it the next time you are asked to speak about the life and adventures of Robinson Crusoe. Did I answer your question?
That way, it's okay.
All right, thank you. So, as I said, the protagonist, the literary genre, and the protagonist, the literary genre, and the audience do not change between the novel and between the novel and the excerpt. Okay, the protagonist, the literary genre, and the audience are the same. That is, whether the excerpt is about Robinson fighting the waves or about Robinson teaching Friday how to be a Christian. In both cases, the audience is the 18th century middle class. In both cases, the protagonist is Robinson Crusoe, and in both cases, the literary genre is a realist novel or a realist adventure novel. Okay, so they do not change from one excerpt to the other. Now, let's go back to the analysis. The next thing we're going to speak about, or the next aspect we're going to speak about, is the theme. The theme, we said, is the implied meaning of the author. Okay, one thing you should know about the theme is that it is not something that the author always decides to speak about. Sometimes it is something that the author decided to speak about. It is something that the author made it on purpose to speak about. Okay, for example, in the case we're speaking about in Daniel Defoe, in Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, one of the main themes that Daniel Defoe wanted to speak about was the discovery. Okay, the discovery, the adventure, becoming rich, and so on. But one of the things that, one of the topics that are in the novel, but Daniel Defoe never chose to speak about, is the idea of colonialism. Even if he wanted to speak about exploration and expansion and so on, I don't think that colonialism was his intention. He wasn't aware he was being, he was talking like a colonialist, okay? Or racism. Again, he wasn't aware he was being a racist. For him, he was teaching a colored man how to be civilized, but he never thought of himself as a racist. Okay, so in the theme, there are topics that the author intended to speak about, to add or to implement in their text, and there are things that the author never intended to put in their text. They just came, let's say, unwillingly. Okay, so one way to speak about the theme is to put the main theme or the main topic that you found in the text, but again, it's not enough. Okay, if you say the theme is racism, that's not enough. Is the author racist? Is the protagonist racist? Is the author saying that racism is a good thing? Is he saying that it's a bad thing? Is he speaking about it directly, indirectly? What is it? Okay, so your answer must be complete. So you don't just mention the theme or the topic, you also have to explain. Evidence from the text? No, you have to explain first and then put the evidence from the text. Okay? What do I mean by explain? By explaining, I mean the perspective. Is the author saying that racism is a good thing? Is the author saying racism is a bad thing? Okay, is the author saying that racism is something that must exist? Racism will make people's life easier. Racism is going to make people's lives bad. Okay, so what is it? And then your evidence from the text. Okay, that is what in the text made you believe there is such a theme. Okay, let's see an example. There is a theme of racism in this text, which is the first part. Because Robinson chose to be called Master instead of his real name by Friday. He taught Friday to say yes and no instead of trying to understand him, and gave him the name Friday instead of trying to learn to pronounce his name. So these are the things that made me believe that there is the theme of racism in the text. Okay, this is the evidence from the text that made me believe that there is the theme of racism in the text. Now, I have to add the perspective. So I will say there is a theme of racism in this text. Stop. Thinks that he is civilizing Friday, but instead treats him as a lower creature, which is inferior to him. The author is not aware of his racism towards the colored people. The theme of racism is apparent when here. Now I have added a few things to the theme. So this is more or less a complete way of talking about the theme. Of course, you are not required to say all these things, but at least do your best to at least show the perspective and explain the evidence from the text. Okay, this is an example of the theme. So first we said there is a theme of racism in the text, and then I explained how the theme of racism in the text is shown in the text. So Robinson thinks that he is civilizing Friday, but instead he treats him as a lower creature, which is inferior to him. Okay, so here I am showing the perspective, all right, how the theme is shown in the text. Is it good, bad, and so on. The author is not aware of his racism towards the colored people. This is again still the same idea. Now I am going to show the evidence from the text. What in the text made me believe that there is racism in this text? The theme of racism is apparent in the text when Robinson chose to be called Master instead of his real name. By Friday, he only taught Friday to say yes and no, and so on. Okay, Now, I want you to give me the themes that you found in the excerpt that we have been studying. In this excerpt, what are the themes that you think you found? You can activate your microphones and
Miss,
yes.
Miss.
we have
Wait,
colonialism.
please, let's. Yes, Rehan?
We have colonialism and capitalism and the individualism of Robinson Crusoe. When
Okay.
he's favor him solving every situation.
All right, Rehan. Um, let's have a look at the text that was provided to you. These 2 pages. Can you explain where did you find colonialism and capitalism here?
I mean the themes of this the story.
All right.
The whole.
See, yes, this is exactly what I was speaking about in the beginning. Always stick to the excerpt that was provided to you. Okay? So we are now analyzing the excerpt itself. You have to stick to the excerpt itself. Don't speak about things that are not in the excerpt. Okay? Ahmed?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Yes, Miss. In
Yes?
this passage, we have survival and individualism when Robinson Crusoe was fighting the towering severe waves,
Mm-hmm.
and he seek for his deliverance to the near shore.
You said there is the theme of individualism when Robinson was fighting the waves, right? Now, can you explain the theme of individualism a little more? How do
Yeah,
you see his individualism in his fight?
yeah, because he was dependent on his skills to deliver himself
Mm-hmm.
to the shore and be safe upon the island. Uh, he didn't give up, and he kept trying to deliver himself.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Indeed, true. So there is the theme of, let me get back to the conversation. Sorry. There is a theme of individualism, he said, in the sense that Robinson was kept fighting for his survival and was self-dependent all the time. He was fighting for his deliverance. In a way, there is also a sense of love of the self and let's say even some self-confidence in there in trying. It is more a natural instinct. It's more related to the natural instinct, the will to save oneself, to the will to save his life. Thank you very much. Malika, do you have anything to add?
Yes, Miss.
Yes.
The main theme of the excerpts is survival.
Mm-hmm.
Because Robinson Crusoe was all the time trying to struggle against the stormy sea. The other theme also is isolation, because he found himself at the end of the excerpt the sole survivor on on the shore,
Mm-hmm.
and he must find a way to still alive.
To stay alive. Yes, thank you very much. All right, let's put these themes on paper. So you said, let's see how the sentence begins. The targeted audience of the novel is the 18th century English middle class because they called for literature that represents them. the themes that are discussed in this excerpt are merely those of survival, you said? What else did you say, Malika? Survival?
Survival, because he was all the time
Right.
along the events of the story, struggling against the stormy sea.
Yes, you
Also, the other theme is isolation, because he found himself the sole survivor on the shore, and
right.
he must find a way to stay alive.
All right, thank you very much. Ahmed, you said there is the theme of individualism, right?
Yeah. Individualism, yeah. When Robinson Crusoe was fighting the towering severe waves,
Yes, was fighting
the towering severe waves are, and he was depending on his skills and the instinct to be safe, or the instinct of survival.
He was dependent on his skills and
Yeah, on his skill. Yeah, and I think that it showed me the instinct of survival.
natural instinct.
Natural instinct. Yeah.
Miss,
Yes, who's speaking? Aya? Yes, I'm listening.
I think individualism is one of the principles of enlightenment. A human being becomes the center of universe.
Yes.
He's also trying to depend on himself without having other helps.
I'm not sure because there's a lot of extra noises. There are a lot of noises there, so I'm not sure I can hear you clearly. But I think you said there is a theme of individualism which is related to the Enlightenment. But then I didn't grasp what you said. There was a lot of noise. There was a lot of
Yeah. Okay.
What was the second part of your sentence?
I said a human being becomes the center of universe.
Yes, the human being becomes the center of the universe. All right. Someone else? Does anyone else have any other themes to provide or to share? Yes. Rehan?
We have rationalism and civilization.
Rationalism and civilization.
What?
Yes, can you explain? You said rationalism and civilization. Can you explain them?
Yes. We can see this from the relationship between Robinson and Friday, that black man, when he's trying to civilize him and the bad treatment of him. That's it.
All right, thank you, Rehan. But again, Rehan, try to stick to the excerpt that was provided to you in which we haven't mentioned Friday at all. Okay, so try to make all your themes or to extract only the themes that are in the excerpts under analysis. Back to Aya. I think Aya was trying to add something.
Yeah, Miss, we have another theme also, colonialism. We said that colonialism is direct consequence of the age of the reason.
Yes. Thank you, Aya. But again, this is same remark as Rehan. Please stick to the content of the excerpt. It's very important that you stick to the content of the excerpt. What I mean by the excerpt is the small text that we have in hand here, the text that we were explaining last time, because now we're only analyzing this text, okay? So the themes that you are providing are not wrong, but they are themes that are related to the entire novel, but they are not in the excerpt under analysis. Okay. During an analysis, I am trying to teach you the method here. Try to focus on the excerpt that was provided to you and to extract the meanings or the themes that are in that excerpt in particular. So let's check what we said about the themes here. We said the themes that are discussed in this excerpt are merely those of survival because let's remember, I want you to notice a mistake here. When I said I know that we were speaking about Robinson and so on, but if you would look at this paragraph, you would see that we don't know who the subject is, okay? So it is wrong to say because he was struggling against the stormy sea. Why? Because you didn't name the character. Okay, so if you are writing a paragraph and your character isn't mentioned, you have to mention the character again. I know we have mentioned Robinson in the previous paragraph, but in this paragraph, we did not mention Robinson. So when you say he, we don't know who your character is. Okay, so I'm going to correct this and put Robinson. You have to be very precise about the subject or the doer in your sentence. Okay. Now, the themes that are discussed in this excerpt are merely those of survival because Robinson was struggling against the stormy sea, and the theme of isolation because he found himself the sole survivor on the shore and had to save his life. Good. There is also the theme of individualism when Robinson was fighting the severe waves for his survival, and he was dependent on his skills for his survival. Let me add this. For his survival. As well as the natural instinct for survival. Okay, this is a repetition. As well as the natural instinct which sustains man, or which sustains his resistance. Okay, now let's move to the next. There are other themes that we can speak about. We can also speak of the theme of nature and the power of nature. In this case, we can say one more theme is that of the power of nature against man. In this excerpt, Robinson is entirely helpless and unable to control his body in front of the power of nature and the waves. Once in the desert island, he feels lost in the beginning, but survives thanks to the wealth, or thanks to the natural resources on the island, which again proves that nature has the power to either kill or save man. Man is very weak in front of nature. Okay, there is this theme of nature against man and the conflict between nature and man in the novel, which is very important. All right, now let's move to the next part of the analysis. See that all the themes that I mentioned are related to the novel, to the text, the excerpt in hand. I haven't spoken of any other themes that are not in the excerpt that we have been discussing. Now, the next part, the identification of the literary genre. We had already identified the literary genre in the introduction of this essay. So let's move on. The settings. Now, who can tell me about the settings? Settings are the time and the place in the excerpt, okay? You stick to the excerpt. Can you provide the time and place that are in this excerpt? Hello, are you here?
Yeah.
Yes, Ahmed?
Yeah. The place at sea. And the time no, will be in the day and it turns to night.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Dua, do you have anything to say? Thank you, Ahmed. Dua?
Yeah, the time setting, it's night. When he saw he would be eaten by a beast. And that means the night is danger for him.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dua.
Yes.
Now, if you have noticed, when you are speaking of the settings, time and place settings, sorry, when you're speaking of the time and the place settings, you don't just mention the time and stop or mention the place and stop. Okay, so the time and place that we have in this excerpt are, that's if we will speak about the place, for example, in the first part of the excerpt, all the events happen in the sea, and then in the second part, all the events happen in the island. Okay, so there is the sea and the mainland, or the sea and the island. And the time, there is the day and the night. But it's not enough to just say the sea and the island, the day and night, okay? You have to be more precise. What happened in the sea? What happened in the island? What happened in the day? What happened in the night? Okay, so let's begin with the sea. What does the sea represent? What happened in the sea? The events. Yes?
Yeah, in the first conflict, when the shipwreck surrounded by the sea, it was the day. And after the deliverance of Robinson Crusoe, when he was on the shore, was the night.
Okay, let's have a look at this. I said the events of the excerpt happened in the sea where the ship was wrecked. Sorry. And Robinson fought for his life, because this is what actually happened in the sea. In the sea, he was fighting for his life, for his survival against the waves. And then we also know that the most other events, or the other part of the events also happened on the island. So events, okay, sorry, and the island in which Robinson first felt. How did he feel in the island? Do you remember how Robinson felt in the island?
Much
he
ecstasy.
Ahmed, can you activate your microphone, Ahmed?
Yeah, yes, Miss. He felt much ecstasy by sight and excitement.
Yeah, he felt excitement and ecstasy for his survival. Yes, Malika?
he was first excited, but thereafter when he found himself the sole survivor, he started being fearful.
Yes, very. Thank you very much. Okay, both your answers are great. So, in the island in which Robinson first felt excited for his survival, although for his survival, then scared for fear of being eaten by the beasts or dying of hunger. Okay, now let's speak about the time. Okay, now we have just spoken of the place settings. Now let's speak about the time settings. The time settings are the day and the night. So the time settings are the daytime and the nighttime. Again, what happened in the daytime? What happened in the nighttime?
In the daytime, Robinson Crusoe was fighting the highway.
Yes.
And at the night, he was near up on the shore.
Good. He was fighting the high waves. During the nighttime, he was not just hiding in the shore or on the shore, he was also scared. Okay, the night was a threat for him. He was scared of being eaten by the beasts. You see, when he said, when he found some lodgings for himself, he said, I was thinking what death I am going to die tomorrow. So he was surrendering to death. Okay, so during the nighttime, he was scared of creatures that might be hidden in the desert island. And there is also the next morning. In the next morning, he was feeling better. He was feeling more positive for his survival. So the next morning, Robinson was feeling more optimistic about his survival. Okay, so at this level, I have just spoken about the time and the place settings and how each of them is significant for the text. So when you are speaking of the time and place settings, you don't just say the settings or the events happened in the time and the day in the sea and the island, but you have to say what happened in each of them. In what way is each of them significant for the narration or for the protagonist. Okay, so let's move to the next aspect. The next aspect is the plot. So we know that the plot is the form of the story and how the sequences are presented in the story. Okay, it begins with an exposition and then a conflict, a complication with a rise in action, the climax, which is the most important or the most complicated point in the narration, the fall in action, and the resolution in which things start to become better and then or less complicated, and then the denouement where the problem ends. Now, do you think you can find all these in the narration? Where is the first conflict?
when the boat was wrecked by the highway, by the furious sea.
When the boat, yes, when the boat is
Was
overthrown by the wave. So that is the exposition and the first conflict. Yes, someone else? I see here 24 participants, but I have only 2 participants speaking. Yes?
Miss,
I
I think the plot exposition is when Robinson Crusoe was fighting the waves.
All right. Yes, that's the first. But that is the first conflict. But in a way, uh, in this conflict, or what you said, what you mentioned as a conflict, is something that happens in a great part of the text. So you have to mention more details. Let's begin with the exposition and the conflict that you provided. So the plot begins when the boat is overthrown by the high waves, which is the exposition of the conflict. Okay? The conflict becomes more complicated, or let's say, in order not to avoid or not to repeat the word conflict, let's use another word. The action rises. All right. How does the action rise?
yeah,
Or when does it rise? Let's go back to the
when
text. This is the text. Yes?
when the protagonist Robinson Crusoe started to fight the waves and started to try to deliver himself up on the near shore.
Very good. Yes. See here, everything that is explained or narrated here is the rising action. Okay. When Robinson kept fighting against the waves, which constantly beat him down. Okay. The action rises as the protagonist, Robinson, is fighting the waves which keep disempowering him. Right? Now, let's speak about sorry. Let's speak about the conflict. The conflict, we said, is the most complicated or the most dangerous point in the narration. What do you think of the conflict? Where do you think is the conflict? Mm-hmm. Hello.
Yeah, when Miss, I think when Robinson Crusoe couldn't access to deliver himself up on the shore.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, let's have a look at this. He says, yes? Someone was talking?
Miss?
Yes, ma'am.
I think the conflict is when Robinson Crusoe starts speaking about its confusion when he couldn't deliver himself from the waves.
Yes, very good. Actually, I want you to...
Yes,
Yes, Malika?
yes. Here we have, I think, two conflicts. We have Robinson versus nature,
Mm-hmm.
and Robinson versus his fate.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain that?
Robinson versus nature, because he was struggling against the power and the fury forces of it to survive, and he couldn't. Well, he found himself soul, and all his comrades died, and this is part of fate.
Yeah, but what you just provided is the theme and not the development of the action. Okay? Although there is the conflict against the waves, but when we are speaking of the plot and the conflict in the plot, you are expected to tell how the narration is exposed to the reader. But what you provided are interpretations of the theme. They are not they are not the exposition of the narration. Okay, the plot is actually how things are narrated and how things are presented to the reader. So now I want you to look at this sentence. In this paragraph, the last time of these two, let's begin here so that we know what these two are. But neither would this deliver me from the fury of the sea, which came pouring in after me again. And twice more I was lifted by the waves and carried forward as before, the shore being very flat. So now we know that he has no power over himself or over his body. He is driven by the sea, by the waves. The last time of these two had well nigh been fatal to me, for the sea, having hurried me along as before, landed me, or rather dashed me, against a piece of rock, and that with such a force that it left me senseless and indeed helpless as to my own deliverance. For the blow taken my side and breast, beat the breath as it were quite out of my body, and I had it return again immediately. I must have been strangled in the water. He couldn't breathe inside the water, okay? But I recovered a little before the return of the waves, okay? What do you think of this?
Yeah, yes, please. It presents the suffering of Robinson Crusoe from the severe waves.
Yeah, he almost died, okay? He says, yeah, here he almost lost his life. He says it was almost fatal. Fatal is something that would kill you, okay? He says it was almost fatal to me. The sea having hurried me, the sea has taken me and then dashed me against the rock. He has no control over his body. The sea or the wave threw him over a rock. It dashed him against the rock, and it left him senseless and helpless. He couldn't feel his body anymore. He received a very strong strike that he couldn't feel his body anymore. Okay, and he could not even breathe. So at this moment, at this very moment, he almost died. So we can consider this the climax, because this here was the most dangerous part in the excerpt. This was the most dangerous part of the narration. Okay, so the action rises into a climax when the action rises into a climax when Robinson was thrown against a rock and could hardly breathe or feel his body. He almost lost his life there, okay, over his body. Now let's speak about how things resolved, okay?
Miss.
So what happened after this climax? Yes?
Yeah, Miss, shouldn't we consider when the Robinson was saved, shouldn't we consider that the climax?
Sorry?
Shouldn't we consider the moment when Robinson was saved? Shouldn't we consider that moment as the climax?
Actually, the climax is the most complicated or the most dangerous moment in the narration. So do you think the moment where he was saved is the most complicated, or the moment where he almost lost his life as the most complicated?
Okay. Yes, the moment when he was almost killed.
Yes?
Yeah, the moment when he was almost killed.
Sorry?
The moment when he was almost killed should be the climax then.
Yeah, because you know, as we speak about the climax and about the plot development in general, you will find different interpretations, and people will give different climaxes for the same event, and that's what we consider different events as the most complicated or the most dangerous. So literature is a matter of interpretation. People will be defining or will be interpreting things differently all the time. Okay, so what you said is not wrong, as long as you know how to explain it. That is, as long as you have a strong evidence and strong argument to convince people. This is why I asked you why. So to me, the climax is the moment in which he almost lost his life, because that is the most complicated or the most complicated event in the plot. In the other parts of the plot, when he arrived to the island, that was complicated for him, but that was also the moment where things started to become brighter. But the moment in which he had no hope at all for survival was the moment in which he was dashed against the rock, and he was, to me, he was thrown inside the water and couldn't save himself. Now, do you agree with that? Do you disagree? Do you have another vision? Do you have another way of explaining things or another interpretation?
I do agree with that. About I thought that the moment when he was saved should be the climax, because a lot of events that happened previously when he was like struggling to survive, and the climax is like the moment when like everything turned, like the turn of events, like when he thought that he was starting to lose hope, then he finally managed to like swim to the shore so he can like survive and stuff. I thought that was the climax, because like it was like the moment like that the author did not expect, because he thought that he was going to die. That's what I thought.
It's
That's
not
why
the
I thought.
author, it's the protagonist.
Yeah, yes, that's what I
So, well, don't you think that arriving to the shore or to the island is the beginning of the fine action or the beginning of the resolution, because he was saved?
I'm not sure because
Hello,
like
how about the others?
Yes.
I thought, because like after he like arrived,
Miss?
1 second, Aya. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, Aya?
Yeah, I think the climax is the most difficult, and I think the climax is the most difficult, complicated action. So that we can't consider the state of Robinson when he saved his life and delivered from the strong waves as a climax. We can consider it as a resolution or denouement.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Aya. Now, back to Yusuf. Yusuf, you were saying something? Sorry?
yeah, I just said that because like there is a conflict right after he was saved, because like he was thinking that he doesn't have like enough the tools to survive, and that he was going to get eaten and whatnot. I just thought that it shouldn't be the climax, the moment when he was threatened, because he was also like threatened later when he survived. So I thought that like the major like event in this, because a large portion of the text is talking about like how he was struggling, and his perception of his struggling to survive, and the moment he like he managed like to survive was the, I thought that moment was the climax, because like it's like a conclusion to like a major part of the text. That's what I thought. Why I thought it was the
Well,
climax.
um, The way you see things, I see how you see it, but in that case, you are talking about two different plots and not one plot. That is, the way you see it, that is the large portion of the text in which he was surviving ends in the moment he saved at the shore, and then once on the shore, another plot begins. So here you are talking about two different plots. You can see it differently, but in that case, you are going to speak about two different plots, two different developments, two different following actions. In that case, yes, you can find you're going to speak about the first plot, which begins at the sea, rises as he is dashed inside the water, and then falls when he arrives to the island. And a second plot, which begins in the island where he is scared and he is threatened, or he feels threatened for his survival, and it resolves when he finds water and food. But I would think these are very small plots. I would go for my first interpretation a little more. I'm sorry, I am more convinced by my interpretation, and that's because the moment in which he almost lost his life, the moment in which he couldn't feel his body anymore, was a moment in which he had no power to survive. At that moment, if he had lost hope, he would lose his life, because it was hope that sustained him. It was hope that kept him alive. He had no power to fight anymore for himself. But then, as he arrived to the island, to me, that's the resolution. That's the beginning of the fallen action until it reached a resolution. Anyway, let's move on to something else, because now we have to move to the other parts of the analysis. Ahmed, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, yes, miss. Just a reminder, there is two plots passage. Yeah.
Sorry?
Here there are two plots.
I wouldn't see it as two plots, because the second plot wouldn't be really strong. So I would see it as one plot. I don't truly see it as two plots. I said, if we take the interpretation of Yusuf, which is not wrong, we should be speaking of two different plots. But again, if we do that, the second plot is going to be really weak. It's not going to be a strong plot, because it's going to be a plot in which we don't truly have a real climax, or the resolution is not going to be as strong as a denouement. Because remember, this is a novel that is composed of 1,000 pages, and if we take the other parts of the novel, the plot is going to be different. So the plot that we're speaking about is only composed, or is only bind to the excerpt that we have. We are controlled by the excerpt in hand. Okay, so we can speak of two plots, but with the information that we have now, we don't have enough data for two plots. Okay, so let's speak about the following action. I'm going for the initial interpretation that I provided. Even though Yusuf, your interpretation wasn't wrong, but for a climax, for a really complicated moment, I think the complicated moment was when he was feeling hopeless for his survival. In the desert island, he was also hopeless for survival, but that was the beginning of the denouement. That was the beginning of the resolution. That is the moment in which things started to be different or better. Okay, so the following action. Yes.
Yes, miss. I think it started from now, as the waves were not so high as at first. So here the situation became to be easily and for Robinson Crusoe.
Very good. To be easier for Robinson. The waves led him to the shore. where things started to become brighter. In the beginning, on the shore, he felt anxious and confused without food, but he soon felt safe when he found food, water, and shelter. Now, this is how you speak about the plot. Okay, so the plot begins when the boat is overthrown by the high waves, which is the exposition of the conflict. The action rises as the protagonist Robinson is fighting for the waves, which keep disempowering him. The action rises into a climax when Robinson was thrown against a rock and could hardly breathe or feel his body. The fine action started when the waves abated and things started to be easier for Robinson, for him, in order not to repeat Robinson. For him, the waves led him to the shore where things started to become brighter. I think there are a lot of repetitions here. So the waves, I'm going to remove this. The things started, the waves abated and led him. Okay, the waves abated and led him to the shore where things started to become brighter. In the beginning, on the shore, he felt anxious and confused without food, but he soon felt safe when he found food, water, and shelter. Okay? Now, let's speak about the next step in the analysis, which is the characterization. Now, we only have two main characters in this excerpt. The first one is Robinson, the second is the sea. Now we're going to say, can we consider nature as a character? Usually in other literary works, we're not necessarily going to consider nature as a character, but in this case, we are going to consider nature, or the sea more particularly, as a character, because as Malika mentioned before, the conflict is between man and nature. And in this case, it is nature, or the sea in particular, that is putting the life of Robinson in danger. Okay? So Robinson, while speaking of characterization, we should first describe the character and then tell whether they are protagonist or antagonist, main character or small character, and whether they are a round or a flat character. Let's begin with Robinson. Robinson,
Yes.
how is he described in the text? What are the qualities or the personality traits of Robinson that you think you have found in the text, even though they are not told directly? Yes, Ahmed, you were speaking?
Yeah, he is the protagonist, and he is the main round character in this excerpt. Miss, can we mention if he is brave or having the courage to face sudden conflict, for example?
Well, Ahmed, when I asked the question, what are the personality traits of Robinson, I wanted you to start first by saying that he is brave, before saying that he is protagonist, main round, and so on. Okay, first describe how the character is presented to you. Okay, so at the first level, let's speak about how the character is presented to you. How is he presented to you?
He's brave and having courage to face sudden conflict.
Yeah, he is brave. He is depicted as a brave man who kept fighting for his life. Yes? What else?
He is skillful in swimming.
Yes. Skillful
In swimming.
What else?
Young also, he is young, it is mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
He's persistent.
Persistent, yes. A young, brave, a young, persistent, brave man who kept fighting for his life. Skillful. All right, what do you think of the fact that he was confused all the time? He felt ecstasies. He was extremely scared, anxious. What do you think of all these? What kind of person is he?
Emotional person.
Emotional, yes. And emotional. He is an emotional person. All right. Now that we have described him, we can say whether he is a main character, small character, protagonist, or antagonist, round or flat. So what is he?
Crusoe obviously participates in the events so that he is a narrator and the central omniscience because he knows everything, he narrates everything.
That's the point of view. We're not speak. We will speak about the point of view later. Now let's stick to the characterization. What you are speaking about is the point of view. Yes, he is round, but is he protagonist, antagonist, main
Protagonist.
character? Very good.
Protagonist.
Yes.
Protagonist.
He is the protagonist of the novel. Okay. He is round or flat?
Round.
Round.
Round. Why?
Because he's developed over the excerpt.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he develops in the excerpt. Mm-hmm.
Because he is the only survivor and he who narrates the events in the story.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, someone else. Why is he round?
Because we can.
Yes, Yusuf.
Because like we can deduct like a lot of his like character from the text. We can see that he has a good like self-awareness. He can like he's like really careful about like his surroundings. Even though like from the text we can see that even though like he was drowning, he could think about like what was happening around him. And when he like managed to like arrive to the when he managed to survive, he also like realized that he's like he's alone. He's not well equipped. There is a lot of like dangers. Like he could get eaten. Like so like we can see that he has like a good like self awareness to like his surroundings and stuff.
Good. Okay, so he's round because he is lifelike first. Okay, he's lifelike. He has self-awareness. Mm-hmm. What else? Yes, keep going.
He's also like did we mention emotional already? Did you tell that?
Yes, emotional. He is multi-dimensional. Okay, he's multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
Because we see him in different emotional states in the text. Okay, he's at one time excited, at the other he's confused, at the other he's scared. We see him at different sides or different states in the through the narration. Okay, so now let's speak about
Can we use like his like perception of like the event to like describe him? Like when he was saying like when the like author like was like talking about how like he was thinking during these events. Can we just say like that he was like thinking like a normal person and like reacting like a multi-dimensional?
Yeah, when you say he's lifelike, in that case, you can mention all the details that you think make him look like a lifelike person. Okay, that is, I am avoiding the details here, but you can mention as many details as you think are going to to prove you right and to show your to explain your argument or to expose your argument. Okay. Now, because we are somehow limited by time, we had expected this to last for only 1 hour, but we're almost 1 hour and a half. So we have to move on. Let's speak about the antagonist now. The antagonist is
The sea.
Nature.
Is the
sea. Okay, the antagonist
sea.
is the sea. Now, why? Because it almost killed Robinson. Okay, we're not going to say whether the sea is round or flat and so on. The sea cannot be round and flat. It cannot. It can be a main character here. Yes, so you can see the antagonist is the sea, which is an important character in this excerpt because it almost killed Robinson. Okay.
Can
Now,
we add the dangers of the night? The dangers of the night. Can we add them?
The dangers of the night.
Yes.
No, because the dangers of the night only happened in the brain of Robinson.
Oh.
You know, he thought about all these dangers, but it was only in his brain. They didn't truly happen to him. They were just fears. So in that case, if you're going to consider an enemy, the enemy in that case is himself because he was scaring himself. See?
Yes.
Yes. Now, let's move on to the point of view. Now, Malika, you can speak about the point of view. Remember what we mean about the point of view?
Yeah.
What is the point of view?
The events of the passage are narrated in the first person point of view because the pronouns we, I, us, and me are used by Crusoe to refer to the characters after shipwrecked.
Yes, very good. But let me ask you the most important question. Is the narrator included in the incidents, or is he standing and watching the incidents happen?
He is included in the incident.
Very good. This is how you decide whether the point of view is first person or third person. Yeah, speaking about the pronouns is good, but the most important question is whether he's included, whether the incidents are happening to him directly, or is he just reporting things that happen to the others. So the text is narrated in a first person point of view
because he is participating in the events.
Let's say because the incidents happened directly to the speaker. Okay? Because the incidents happened directly to the speaker and affected him. Now, is it central or peripheral?
Central.
Central. The point of view. Of view is central. Now tell me why.
Because he was the main part of this story.
Sorry, because?
He was the main part. He was play a role.
The main part?
Because the protagonist is the narrator himself.
Very good, because the narrator is the protagonist himself. Okay, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Good. The point of view is central because the speaker or the narrator is the protagonist himself. Okay? So the narration is done from a first-person point of view because the incidents happened directly to the speaker and affected him directly, and it is central because the speaker is himself the protagonist. Now let's speak about the next part of the analysis. Point of view.
Miss, what about omniscient and intrusive?
Omniscient and intrusive, that's when we're speaking of the third person. Okay? That's when we have third-person point of view. They can be omniscient if they know everything about the story. For example, if we are in a fairy tale and we have a narrator who knows everything, that's an omniscient narrator, or intrusive. Okay?
Okay.
Now, let's speak about the literary devices. Register, we said, is the language, the kind of language that is used in the text. Is it religious, formal, informal, colloquial, slang, taboo, and so on? Sometimes it's also political, it is scientific, industrial. It depends on the text that we are dealing with. So let's speak about the register in the text in hand. That is the register that we had here. What do you think of the kind of register, the kind of the language that was used?
Formal one.
Formal, yes, okay. Register of this excerpt is formal and sometimes even religious because he makes many references to God, okay? And at times religious because of the different references to God. See that whatever your answer is, you must always provide your evidence. You must always explain why. Otherwise, you are not convincing. We can be having different interpretations of the text. So if you do not provide your arguments, you are not convincing. You must convince your reader. You must convince the person that is reading your paper. Now, let's speak about the diction. Is it Latin origin or Anglo-Saxon origin?
Latin origin, miss.
Very good. Okay. This is a 18th century text, British English. So most of the words are of a Latin origin. Okay. Especially that he makes many references to religious words. If you would take the text here, in any paragraph, you are going to find a lot of Latin origin words. For example, fury of the sea instead of anger of the sea. He could have said anger, but instead he said fury. Sorest myself, why he could have said maybe saved myself or calmed myself. He says sorest. Now, sorest is also a Latin origin word. Pilot myself.
Force.
Yes, there are more Latin origin words than Anglo-Saxon origin words in the text, okay? The diction is Latin origin. Right? Now let's speak about the figures of speech. Have you found any figures of speech? And there are hundreds of figures of speech in this text.
Yes.
Yes. Can you provide the figures of speech that you found?
Defoe resorts to the use of different figures of speech in order to fascinate the reader. Namely, a simile is illustrated in a mountain lake, in which the author compares the raging waves with a mountain. Another simile is also demonstrated.
All right, let's start this. There are different
figures of speech.
We fix this. Different figures of speech in the text, like a simile. Which paragraph is it? Mountain lake.
Mountain lake.
Yes.
Because I prepared it.
Found it in the first paragraph, second line. Yeah, like a simile in
mountain lake.
Which means what does he mean by mountain lake?
Waves that he compared the author comparing the raging waves to a mountain.
Yeah, and what is common between the raging wave and the mountain?
The highness of
the highest. Okay,
the waves.
So this is what you should be saying when saying which means. Okay, which means that the wave was very
high.
Yes, almost as high as a mountain. So the point of comparison here is the size of the wave. One more figure of speech, please.
there is also apostrophe and oh God. Shows the panic and the relief request from Robinson Crusoe and his fate.
There is an apostrophe in oh God. Okay, which means?
Yeah.
Which?
The panic and relief request.
Which shows what?
The panic.
Sorry.
Yeah. The panic and relief.
I don't think I got it. I got that. Can you type it in the conversation?
Yeah. P-A-N-I-C.
E-A-N?
Yeah. I-C. Panic.
Panic. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me think about it. Which gave us no time to say, oh God, for we were all swallowed up in a moment. Yes? Yes, we can consider it so. So we say there is an apostrophe in oh God, which shows the panic, said, and?
Yeah. Request and the Crusoe fate.
I don't think I got that, so please try to write it in the conversation, and I will have a look at it later. Okay. Other figures of speech you think you found in the text? Come on, there are many figures of speech. All of the others.
Hyperbole is used by the author when he said making 1,000 gesture and motions.
Yes,
which I cannot describe.
Yes,
the author here is exaggerating in portraying the gesture and the motion of Crusoe.
Yes.
Because he can't make 1,000 at once.
1,000 gestures, a hyperbole in 1,000 gestures and motions.
Yes.
And motions.
Which I cannot describe.
Yes. In which
the author,
the speaker, not the author, in which the speaker exaggerated. Yes.
In portraying the gestures.
In portraying the gestures.
And the motions of Crusoe.
Let's say it's exaggerated in portraying the gestures which followed his ecstasy, because they were his ecstasy of his survival, which followed his ecstasy about his survival. One more figure of speech, one last figure, please. Anyone? Yes. Yes.
There is also a personification in the wave that came upon me again, buried me, in which the speaker gives the wave a human quality.
All right, let's take that. There is a personification in a wave.
They came upon me again.
The wave that came upon me.
Again, buried me.
Again, buried me all at once. Yes? All right, so this is one second, please. This is a personification. This was Rahma speaking, right?
Yes.
Okay. And can you provide the meaning of this example?
Will the speaker gives the wave a human quality, and I think it's big to show the reader the strength of the wave and how it buried him deep in its depth.
Yes, very good. Marika, did you have something to say about this?
Miss, there is another simile I would
Okay, let's
to
just
say.
write the answer of Rahma and then get back to you.
Okay.
So I said the author or the wave, sorry, is given a human quality to show what, Rahma? To show?
So the reader how strong the wave was.
Okay, to show its strength in in
How
beating,
it pulled
in
the
beating Robinson.
strength on
Yeah, to
that.
keep it short, to show its strength in beating Robinson. All right, last example, Marika.
Miss, another simile is demonstrated in For I saw the sea come after me, as high as a great hill, and as furious as an enemy, in which the speaker compares the sea as a great hill due to its highness, and then compares it to an enemy due to its intensity, or rather strength and violence.
Okay, so the first one is the sea as a great hill, and the second one?
But they are at the same line.
Furious
In the same line.
enemy, right?
Yes.
Right. All right.
In which the speaker
Yes.
compares the sea to a great hill due to its highness.
The size, let's say the size and yes,
the intensity.
The height and not highness, the height. I replaced it by the word size because size is more accurate here. Okay,
and then compares it to an enemy due to its intensity and violence.
Intensity and violence. Okay. Intensity and violence. So, in which the speaker compares the size and the intensity and violence
of the waves
to foes and enemies. All right. Let's now move on to the atmosphere and the tone. Okay. The tone, we said, is the feeling of the author. So if you were Daniel Defoe and you are the one who wrote this text, how do you feel about your character? How do you feel about the events that you chose for him? Yes? The tone?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, miss. It's begin with sadness, and it finishes with happiness.
Okay, so you think that the author is sad in the beginning for his character and then happy?
Yeah.
Yes. Let's see what the authors have to say about this.
Miss, the tone is related to the author, not to the narrator, not to Crusoe.
Yes. Yes. Here's the document. Can you see the document?
Yes.
Yes. So, well, speaking here of the tone, the reflection of the author's attitude through his work, feeling found in the work. It can be happiness, sadness, detachment, anger, irritation. If one way of answering the question about the tone is, if I was the author, how do I feel about the events? How do I feel about the character I have just made? If you were Daniel Defoe, think of yourself as Daniel. You made the character Robinson Crusoe, and you made the storm. You made all these things happen to him. How do you feel?
Miss, the author Defoe in the excerpts is impassive, because he shows no response, he shows no emotion. We can't find any word that refer to his emotion.
Of course, the author is not going to interfere and say, "Here I am, and here's how I feel." But you can find that out
But he
from.
can comment sometimes with some writers.
Yes,
They
actually,
intervene in the story.
yes, that's in postmodernist literature, the literature that was written after the 1940s. That's a new way of writing, which is entirely subversive and entirely different from the traditional ways of writing. And the technique here is called self-reflexivity, when the author interferes in the text to introduce himself or herself, or to say what they think. In that case, it's referred to as self-reflexivity. But in this case, we don't have self-reflexivity, and you can infer the feeling of the author from the events that happen to the author, to the protagonist, from the kind of words that are used with the protagonist, and so on. Okay, example, the protagonist is shown as a brave man. Even though he was struggling and so on, he is still shown as a brave man. So we know that there is sympathy towards the protagonist. We know that there is some kind of sympathy that the author more or less, or to a certain extent, loves the character and wants him to survive. As I said in class last time, although he made him suffer, but he saved his life at the end. Don't you think? Hello.
Can't we say that he was feeling angry about the character at first?
Yes, you can say so. Why do you think that he was angry with him?
Because he tried to kill him.
He tried to kill him. Yeah. He made him suffer. All right, let's put this all in a sentence, and let's choose our words nicely. We don't want to be attacked by someone who loves Daniel Defoe. So, what do you think of the tone? The tone of the author is angry in the beginning. Let's say is somehow harsh. Can we say harsh?
Yes.
Harsh towards
helpless.
the main character in the beginning of the excerpt, because he put his life in danger. Yes? And then he saved him, and he made him survive. So what do we know here?
He pitied him, like he was feeling.
But he made him survive all these troubles, which means, or which shows that Defoe feels some.
He was merciful.
His character. He feels some pity and mercy. Yes, and mercy for his character. Now, the atmosphere. If you were Robinson, how do you feel things around you? I don't say how do you feel inside you, but how do you feel the atmosphere around you?
Miss isolated in danger.
Danger, yes. Okay.
Surrounded
the
by danger.
Of danger. He sees danger everywhere. In the water, there is danger. In the island, there is danger. There's danger everywhere. Okay. Do you think there is any other feeling except danger? Is full of danger, which surrounds the protagonist, both in the water and in the island. Yes. Anything else?
Miss, he was first pessimistic, and then at the end of the story, he regained his. He became optimistic.
Yes. So let's say there is optimism. there is optimism. And
at the end of the story.
Excerpt. Yes. When Robinson starts to find solutions for his difficult situation. Anything to add?
Miss.
Yes.
Yeah. Can we if we take the whole novel into consideration, we can see that the narrator or the author is punishing Robinson, because even the narrator himself said that these misfortunes were happening to me because he was disobeying his parents, and he was doing a lot of wrong deeds, so that's why it was happening to him, and that's what led him to his conversion to religion and stuff.
Maybe you should think of it differently. Think of it based on the impression that Robinson is giving his readers about him. What do readers think of Robinson? And once you can answer that, you can truly see the real tone of the author in the entire novel. Do readers sympathize with Robinson? Do they think of him as a great man, as a brave man, as a brave adventurer, or do they hate him?
Can you please repeat this idea?
I said, in order to realize what the true tone of the entire novel is, you should, and actually there isn't only one feeling. You can find many feelings in the tone. Okay, you should ask yourself, how do readers receive the novel and the character of Robinson Crusoe? How do readers feel about Robinson Crusoe? How do they what do they think of him? All right. So once you answer that question, you can you are speaking about the tone. Once you answer that question, you know how Daniel Defoe thinks about him, because Daniel Defoe truly, yeah, it's true that he made him go through a lot of difficulties, a lot of hardships. He made him suffer. He almost killed him, and then he saved him again. He made him a slave. But at the end, what do readers think of Robinson? Do they think of Robinson as a bad person, or do they think that Robinson is a brave man, who a self-made man, and do they take him as an example of bravery, or do they consider him as a bad person because he disobeyed his parents? At the end, what do readers think of this character? Did you get me? Did you get my my idea here? Yes. All right. Now let's speak about the conclusion. Let's conclude. The conclusion, we said you can say whatever you want, but without saying "I think." Okay. You can add anything about the novel or about the excerpt without truly saying "I think." All right. How should we conclude?
Can I try, Miss?
Yes.
Overall, Crusoe is a story of a man who ends up the sole survivor after a shipwreck on an isolated island. From my perspective, Crusoe is such a courageous man, and its story is very inspiring about how man should survive when finds himself individual facing hardship. So that the message from his story is well conveyed by Defoe.
Okay, good. Please, Malika, try to type that in the conversation so I can copy it and put it in the document. Someone else, can you please, the others, the others suggest anything for the conclusion? Hello, everyone. Yusuf, Ahmed, the silent majority whom I can see here. Yes?
Yeah, can we say at last the Daniel Defoe's the talent in the art of writing
Daniel Defoe, what?
Daniel Defoe's talent in the art of writing has shown in the represent the ideas and the events correctly and simply in this novel.
Okay. Yes, that's also a good conclusion. Please write it in the conversation so I can add it to the previous conclusion and make up one general conclusion from your ideas. Anyone else wants to add anything for the conclusion?
You say Robinson Crusoe is a fable of sin and punishment.
Yes. Can you repeat, Hayat?
We say Robinson is a fable of sin and punishment.
Robinson is an example, you said, of? I only got punishment. Okay, I'm having some trouble hearing you, so you two please write your conclusion in the conversation. I am going to take all your conclusions later and save them in the document. Now, here's where you can find the document. I'm going to save the document first. New session. So I'm going to save the document here in the file section. If you go through the file section, you are going to find all the documents that I shared with you. You are going to find all the documents that I shared with you. So you can get back here at any time and take any of these resources. So I'm going to upload the document that we have built together. I'm going to modify the document later and upload it again here. I am uploading it now just so I can show it to you. Okay, so for next time, we're going to analyze an excerpt from Clarissa or History of a Young Lady. Let me check if I have Clarissa here in my computer. I want you to watch the film. I want you to watch the film. You can just go on YouTube, type Clarissa or History of a Young Lady, and you will find the entire film. I couldn't find it here. It's not on my computer. Anyway, I will be sharing the excerpt from Clarissa with you. So for our next session, probably next Saturday at 3 p.m. as usual, we're going to analyze an excerpt from Clarissa or History of a Young Lady. Okay, so thank you all for coming today and for being so patient with me. We have taken more 2 hours. Thank you all for your contributions, your interactions, your ideas, and hopefully next time the others are going to be more vivid. Congratulations for your successful first experience with Litria Analysis, and see you soon. Okay, thank you all for coming today. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, Miss.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Thank you for you too.
Thank
Bye.
you.